Sarah Martinez had been working at the Sunset Boulevard Starbucks for 3 years, but nothing could have prepared her for this particular Wednesday morning. The pre-dawn hours in Los Angeles always carried a certain magic, that brief window when the city's crushing traffic hadn't yet materialized and the air still held the remnants of the previous night's marine layer. But today would prove more magical than most. She was training the newest addition to their team, Danny Chin, a film student at USC who had an encyclopedic knowledge of cinema but had never made a proper latte in his life. The morning rush hadn't started yet, and Sarah was walking him through the basics of the espresso machine when the door chimed. Remember, she was saying, "You always want to," the words died in her throat as she looked up. There, silhouetted against the growing light of dawn, stood Al Pacino. Not young Michael Corleone Al Pacino, not even Scent of a Woman Al Pacino, but the real, present-day legend himself, dressed in a simple black outfit that somehow made him look both casual and elegant. Danny's eyes went wide, and Sarah could practically hear his film student brain short-circuiting. Pacino approached the counter with that distinctive walk of his, the one that had commanded screens for over 5 decades. His eyes, still as intense as ever, scanned the menu board above them, though Sarah suspected he already knew exactly what he wanted. "Good morning," he said, his voice carrying that familiar gravelly warmth that had delivered some of cinema's most memorable lines. "Just a regular coffee, please. Medium roast." Sarah nodded, trying to maintain her professional composure while Danny stood frozen beside her. As she reached for a cup, her hand hovered over the marker. In that moment, something possessed her. Maybe it was the sleep deprivation, maybe it was the surreal nature of the situation, or maybe it was just destiny. Without fully thinking it through, she uncapped the marker and wrote on the cup, "Say hello to my little friend." Her heart pounded as she prepared the coffee, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. What if he was tired of people quoting his movies? What if he found it disrespectful? What if Her spiral of worry was interrupted by a sound that made her look up. Al Pacino was laughing. Not just a polite chuckle, but a genuine, warm laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Classic, son," he said, directing his words at Danny, who looked like he might faint. "You know, that line wasn't even in the original script? We were doing takes and something just happened. Movie magic, you know what I mean?" Before Sarah knew what was happening, Pacino was sharing stories about the making of Scarface, leaning against the counter like he was chatting with old friends. Danny had recovered enough to ask intelligent questions about method acting and working with De Palma, while Sarah found herself drawn into a conversation about how the coffee industry had changed since the actor's early days in New York. What none of them noticed was the woman sitting in the corner, taking pictures with her phone. Lauren Chin, no relation to Danny, was a social media influencer with a modest but dedicated following, and she knew she had just stumbled upon something special. As she watched the legendary actor interact with the starstruck baristas, she began composing a post that would soon set in motion a chain of events none of them could have predicted. The morning light was streaming through the windows now, painting everything in a golden hue that made the moment feel even more surreal. But this was just the beginning. None of them could have known that this simple interaction, a coffee order, a movie quote, and a laugh, would spiral into something that would change all their lives forever. As Pacino left the store with his coffee, pausing to take a photo with the staff, Sarah and Danny exchanged looks of disbelief. But if they thought this was the high point of their story, they were very much mistaken. In fact, they were about to learn that in Los Angeles, sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin with the most ordinary moments, like writing a movie quote on a coffee cup. Little did they know, their Starbucks was about to become the epicenter of a phenomenon that would capture the imagination of the entire city, and the ripples of this morning would reach far beyond their little corner of Sunset Boulevard. But that's getting ahead of our story. For now, let's just say that Lauren Chen's fingers were flying across her phone screen, and somewhere in the vast digital ether, a hashtag was about to be born. Hashtag say hello to my little coffee. Lauren Chen's fingers trembled slightly as she put the finishing touches on her Instagram post. The lighting had been perfect, morning sunlight streaming through the windows, catching Al Pacino's profile just right as he smiled at his coffee cup. Her caption read, "Just witnessed a legend getting his morning coffee. Check out what the barista wrote on his cup. Face screaming in fear, hot beverage, hashtag say hello to my little coffee, hashtag Al Pacino, hashtag only in LA." She hadn't expected much, maybe a few hundred likes from her regular followers. But there was something about the genuine warmth of the interaction she'd captured that seemed to resonate with people. Within an hour, her notification feed became a waterfall of activity. By noon, the post had been picked up by several major entertainment news accounts. By 2 o'clock, it had made its way to Twitter, where film buffs and coffee enthusiasts alike were sharing it with a fervor that surprised everyone, especially Sarah and Danny, who were now dealing with an unexpected afternoon rush. Is it true? The customers kept asking. Is this where Al Pacino got his coffee? Can you write that on my cup too? Sarah found herself writing, "Say hello to my little friend," so many times that the words began to lose meaning. Danny, meanwhile, was fielding questions about his conversation with Pacino regarding method acting. Each time he told the story, it grew a little longer, a little more detailed, though he tried his best to stay truthful to what had actually happened. Their district manager, Victoria Walsh, called the store around 4 p.m. Sarah's stomach dropped when she saw the number pop up on the store phone. Corporate wasn't always enthusiastic about unauthorized social media attention. But Victoria's voice was bubbling with excitement. "Sarah, have you seen the numbers? Your store's sales have tripled since this morning. Corporate is thrilled. They want to know if we can turn this into something bigger." Before Sarah could process what that meant, she noticed a familiar face peering through the window. Lauren Chin had returned, this time with a professional camera and what appeared to be a small film crew. Victoria?" Sarah said into the phone. "I think we might need to talk about crowd control." The next morning, there was already a line when Sarah arrived to open the store. People had driven from as far as San Diego, hoping to get their own piece of movie history in coffee cup form. Local news vans were parked across the street, and a reporter was doing a live stand-up about the coffee shop that became an overnight sensation. Danny showed up for his shift looking both exhausted and exhilarated. He'd spent the night editing together a video about his encounter with Pacino, which was now gaining traction on his previously modest YouTube channel. Film school classmates who had barely noticed him before were suddenly asking to collaborate on projects. But it was when the other celebrities started showing up that things really got interesting. Robert De Niro came in around 10 a.m., ordered an espresso, and insisted that Sarah write, "You talkin' to me?" on his cup. The photo of him holding it up next to a grinning Danny nearly broke Instagram. By the end of the second day, their little Starbucks had become more than just a coffee shop. It was becoming a pop culture phenomenon. The walls were starting to fill up with photos of celebrities and their quoted cups, each one adding to the growing legend. But not everyone was thrilled with the attention. The other businesses on the block were complaining about the crowds blocking their entrances. Some regular customers grumbled about the long wait times and the constant buzz of excitement that had replaced their usually peaceful morning coffee routine. And then there was the mysterious figure who kept watching from across the street, a man in an expensive suit who seemed to be taking notes and making phone calls. Sarah noticed him on both days, always observing, never ordering coffee. She couldn't shake the feeling that he was going to play a significant role in whatever was coming next. As Sarah closed up that second night, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message read, "Loved what you did with my cup. How would you like to take this show on the road? AP." She stared at the message for a long moment, her hand shaking slightly. Across the street, the man in the suit was watching, his silhouette barely visible in the gathering dusk. The simple act of writing a movie quote on a coffee cup had set something in motion, something bigger than she could have imagined. And somehow she knew that what had happened so far was just the beginning. The real question was, what would she do next? And more importantly, what would it cost her?
Tell us in the comments what part of this story impressed you the most. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next videos. See you in the world of incredible events.
Sarah's fingers hovered over her phone screen, Al Pacino's text message glowing in the darkness of her apartment. After 3 attempts at drafting a response, she finally settled on, "I'm interested in hearing more." The reply came almost instantly, "Tomorrow. Chateau Marmont, 9 a.m. What Sarah didn't know was that across town, in a penthouse suite at the Beverly Wilshire, the mysterious man in the suit was having a very different kind of conversation. Maxwell Sterling, CEO of Sterling Coffee Enterprises, was watching footage of the Starbucks phenomenon on multiple screens while his team of executives presented their analysis. "It's perfect," Sterling said, cutting through their presentation. "Authentic, organic, and completely replicable." He turned to his chief marketing officer. "How soon can we launch a competing concept? Something with the same celebrity appeal but bigger." Meanwhile, Danny Chin was in his cramped student apartment editing his latest YouTube video. His subscriber count had jumped from 500 to 50,000 in just 3 days. His phone buzzed, another message from a major talent agency wanting to discuss representation. He'd already turned down 3 others, but this one was William Morris Endeavor. His hands shook as he read the email. The next morning, Sarah walked into the Chateau Marmont precisely at 9 a.m. The hotel's famous garden restaurant was nearly empty, save for one table where Al Pacino sat with a distinguished-looking woman in her 50s wearing a crisp business suit. "Sarah," Pacino called out, standing to greet her. "Meet Monica Vega, my business partner. We've got an idea we want to run by you." Monica's presentation was slick and professional. The concept: Little Friend Coffee Company, a chain of boutique coffee shops where every cup would feature a famous movie quote, personally approved by the actors who made them famous. They had already secured commitments from dozens of A-list celebrities, all excited to be part of the venture. "We want you to be our chief creative officer," Monica said, sliding a contract across the table. "Your instinct for that moment with Al, that's what we want to bottle. Plus, you'll get 5% equity in the company." Sarah's head was spinning. The salary they were offering was more money than she'd ever imagined making. But as she reached for the contract, her phone buzzed with a text from Danny: "Emergency at the store. Get here now." She arrived at the Starbucks to find chaos. Maxwell Sterling himself was there, surrounded by cameras and press, announcing the launch of Hollywood Brew, a new chain of coffee shops that would feature celebrity collaborations and movie-themed drinks. The crowd that had gathered was eating it up, and worse, he was promising to open the first location right across the street. But that wasn't even the biggest problem. The local health department had shown up for a routine inspection, though Sarah suspected Sterling's influence. They were threatening to shut down the store over code violations that had never been issues before. Danny pulled her aside, his face pale. "That's not all," he whispered, showing her his phone. Someone had leaked security footage from the store, showing what appeared to be Sarah serving expired products. The footage was doctored, but it was already trending on Twitter. Lauren Chin burst through the door, out of breath. "Sarah, we've got bigger problems. Someone's claiming they own the intellectual property rights to putting movie quotes on cups. They're threatening to sue Starbucks and you personally." Sarah's phone buzzed again. This time it was Victoria, her district manager. "Corporate legal team wants to meet now." As she stood in the middle of her store, watching her dream turn into a nightmare, Sarah felt the weight of multiple forces pulling her in different directions. The contract from Pacino's team burned in her bag. Sterling's press conference continued outside. Danny's career was taking off. And somewhere in the digital ether, her reputation was being systematically dismantled. That's when she noticed something odd about the security footage on Danny's phone. In the background, barely visible but definitely there, was a reflection that shouldn't have been possible given the store's layout. A reflection that might just prove the footage was fake if only they could prove it. She looked up at Danny, a plan forming in her mind. "How good are your film school friends with special effects?" "Pretty good," he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Why?" "Because," Sarah said, pulling out her phone to text Pacino, "I think it's time we make them say hello to our little friends." The game was about to change, but not in the way anyone expected. As Sarah gathered her team, Danny with his film skills, Lauren with her social media influence, and potentially Pacino with his Hollywood connections, she realized that sometimes the best defense isn't just a good offense. Sometimes it's a good story. And this story was far from over. Danny Chen's USC film department had never seen such activity at 2 a.m. In one of the editing suites, he sat with his most talented classmates, poring over the fake security footage frame by frame. Sarah paced behind them, her fifth coffee of the night growing cold beside the monitors. "There!" shouted Lisa Wong, Danny's visual effects professor who had agreed to help after hours. "Look at the light source in the reflection. It's coming from the wrong direction. Whoever faked this footage didn't account for basic physics. But proving the footage was fake was only part of their plan." In another room, Lauren Chan was orchestrating what she called Operation Reverse Viral, a coordinated social media campaign that would launch precisely when they needed it. "Got it!" Danny exclaimed, putting the finishing touches on their video analysis. "Now watch this." He pulled up another project file, and everyone gathered around his screen. What they saw made them smile. It was a masterfully edited compilation. Security footage from the real store showing Sarah's actual interactions with customers over the years. Birthday celebrations she'd remembered. Regulars whose orders she knew by heart. Small acts of kindness caught on camera. The contrast with the fake footage couldn't have been more stark. But the real masterstroke was what came next. The next morning, Maxwell Sterling arrived at his office to find Al Pacino sitting in his chair, feet propped up on the desk. "You know," Pacino said, not moving from his position. There's this great line from Heat. De Niro's character says, "Never have anything in your life that you can't walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you spot the heat around the corner." Sterling's face remained impassive. "Is this supposed to intimidate me?" "Intimidate?" Pacino laughed. No, this is an invitation to a premiere." Across town, Sarah was opening the Starbucks as usual, but today was different. Every major morning show had a crew outside. Social media was buzzing with a mysterious countdown Lauren had started. Celebrity after celebrity began showing up, not just for coffee, but carrying signs that read, "I stand with Sarah." At exactly 9 a.m., Danny's video dropped across all platforms simultaneously. It wasn't just an exposé of the fake footage, it was a short documentary about the soul of their little coffee shop, featuring interviews with regular customers, touching moments caught on real security cameras, and testimonials from celebrities. But most powerfully, it showed how Sterling Coffee Enterprises had a history of trying to crush small businesses through similar tactics. The video ended with a challenge. For 1 week, any coffee shop anywhere in the world could use movie quotes on their cups, photograph them, and share them with the hashtag #CoffeeCommunityNotCorporate. All licensing fees would be waived, a fact made possible by the signatures of dozens of actors who had signed on to support the cause. Sterling watched his phone explode with notifications as the video went viral. His corporate Instagram account was flooded with photos of coffee cups bearing movie quotes from shops around the world. Every attempt his team had made to control the narrative was being overwhelmed by the sheer authenticity of the response. But Sarah wasn't done. She walked out of her store and directly up to the cameras. "Mr. Sterling," she said, looking directly into the nearest lens, "I have a business proposition for you. Come by the shop, let me make you a coffee, and let's talk about how we can make this industry better together. After all," she smiled, "I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse." The crowd went wild. Sterling's phone rang. It was his board of directors. The company's stock had actually jumped at Sarah's olive branch. Customers were responding to the possibility of cooperation over competition. Inside the store, Danny was on the phone with William Morris Endeavor, but not about representation for himself. He was discussing a larger deal, one that would involve Sarah, Lauren, and a completely new approach to celebrity partnerships in the coffee industry. Monica Vega appeared beside Sarah as the media frenzy continued outside. "Still interested in that chief creative officer position?" she asked. "Though I think we might need to adjust the title and the salary up." Sarah looked around at what her little coffee shop had become, not just a viral sensation, but a symbol of something bigger. Community over corporation, authenticity over artifice, creativity over control. Her phone buzzed with a text from Pacino. "Kid, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." She smiled, but before she could respond, Sterling himself walked through the door. The shop fell silent. He looked around, taking in the photos on the wall, the line of customers, the energy of the place. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. "All right," he said, approaching the counter. "Make me a coffee." "And yes," he smiled, "you can write whatever you want on the cup." Sarah picked up her marker, knowing that what she wrote next would set the tone for everything that followed. The whole room held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. But that's getting ahead of our story. Sarah held the marker poised over Sterling's cup, aware that every phone in the store was recording this moment. The silence stretched for 1 beat, 2. Then she smiled and wrote, "Here's looking at you, kid." Sterling read it and burst out laughing, a genuine, unexpected sound that broke the tension in the room. "Perfect," he said. "Absolutely perfect." What followed was a conversation that would change the coffee industry. Sterling, Sarah, Pacino, and Monica Vega sat at a corner table while Danny and Lauren kept the store running. The discussion lasted hours, fueled by endless cups of coffee and what Pacino called the kind of creative energy you usually only find on a good film set. By sunset, they had sketched out something revolutionary, a foundation that would support independent coffee shops worldwide, funded by a partnership between Sterling Coffee Enterprises and the newly formed Little Friend Coffee Company. The foundation would provide grants, training, and resources to help small shops maintain their unique character while accessing the benefits of larger corporate infrastructure. Think of it as a coffee shop cinematic universe. Danny had chimed in during one of his coffee runs to their table. Every location tells its own story, but they're all connected by something bigger. The impact was immediate and far-reaching. Within a month, Sarah became the executive director of the Coffee Community Foundation, while maintaining creative oversight of her original Starbucks location, which was designated as a heritage store and model for community engagement. Danny's documentary about the whole affair won a student film festival and landed him an internship with a major production company. He still worked one shift a week at the coffee shop to stay grounded. As he put it, Lauren Chen's social media consultancy focused on helping small businesses find their authentic voice online. Her first book, Brewing Authenticity: How a Cup of Coffee Changed Social Media, was already generating buzz. Maxwell Sterling discovered that embracing community over competition actually improved his company's bottom line. The publicity from the foundation's work sent Sterling Coffee Enterprises stock to record highs. Monica Vega and Al Pacino's Little Friend Coffee Company became an incubator for innovative coffee shop concepts, with a portion of all proceeds supporting arts education in underserved communities. But the real magic happened in the small moments. Like when a young barista in Tokyo wrote, "I'll be back on a cup," and the customer, a visiting Arnold Schwarzenegger, was so delighted he spent 2 hours sharing stories with the staff. Or when a tiny cafe in Rome started a tradition of writing quotes from Italian cinema on their cups, creating their own local phenomenon. 1 year later, Sarah stood in her original store, now covered in photos and memories from the past year. The mysterious moment when she decided to write that quote on Al Pacino's cup had sparked something that no one could have predicted. A movement that reminded people that sometimes the smallest gestures can create the biggest changes. The door chimed, and she looked up to see Al Pacino walking in, this time with Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese in tow. "The usual?" she asked, already reaching for her marker. "The usual," Pacino confirmed, then added with a wink, "And kid, make it a grande story." Sarah smiled as she wrote on his cup, knowing that while some stories seem to end, the best ones just keep brewing new beginnings. After all, in Los Angeles, and now in coffee shops around the world, every cup had the potential to be the start of another tale worth telling. As she handed Pacino his coffee, she glanced at the line forming outside, not just people wanting coffee, but people hoping to be part of something special. Each cup she served wasn't just a drink. It was a tiny piece of creativity, a small moment of connection, a little friend making the world a bit warmer, one quote at a time. And that, as they say in the movies, was just the beginning.
Tell us in the comments what part of this story impressed you the most. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next videos. See you in the world of incredible events.